Good dad carries you through the dangers. Sheds light in the darkness. Protects and guides you. He gives of himself to raise you up, and enjoys the light of your success with you. A friend of mine asked for a Father's Day gift, so we're going to start with a hammer and a piece of oak. Yeah, this'll work. The first order of business is to sand off any markings and all the varnish off the handle. As you can see in a minute, we are going to laser engrave an inscription on here. This project isn't requiring a laser engraver. You could use a $20 set of wood burning tools, or you could even use a paint pen and just write a message on here. But we've got the laser engraver, so we're going to use it. So let's see, I think that looks pretty good. After sanding the handle, I went ahead and polished the head of the hammer as well. It's not necessary, but I want this to look a little more formal. And so we'll get some measurements so we can cut down our little piece of oak to better fit the hammer. So we do a little snip here, and now the board is 14 3/4 inches long. Now that the oak is trimmed down, I'm going to take probably the most dangerous tool in the shop, the cordless trim router, and with a 1/4 inch round over on it, we're going to round over the edges of this. This will make up the back of our plaque. Be careful when using these tools. They are small and powerful and can easily get away from you. Once that's done, we take and sand down, and this particular board, I want to have a nice smooth finish on it. It's going to be a wall plaque. So I'm taking it up to about a 400 grit. But I'm really not going to subject you to that whole thing. Just trust that I sanded it down till it's very smooth. Alright, next step. This next step, I placed the hammer on the oak the way I wanted it, and then I pulled up a stool and took a picture with my phone so that I could take it into the computer and do a design. Now I know that the board length is exactly 14 3/4 inches. So you can see that after taking a photo here, in the next step I can take that into the computer and get precise dimensions for the rest of the layout. So let's take it inside. You can see here that I dropped the photo into Adobe Illustrator, and I'm now marking out where the hammer is going to be placed on the wood. I'm not going to bore you with the entire thing, and if you are interested in how to design one of these on the computer side of it, join my Patreon and you will get access to tutorials on most of my projects. But in a nutshell, I trace around the picture of the hammer so I know where not to laser, and I can go about designing the rest of it. So let's fast forward and get on to the good stuff. Now that all the boring computer work is done, I've loaded it into Lightburn, lined it up, and here we are cutting it out, well, engraving it with the X-Tool D1. You know, I really need a name for this thing. What should I call it? I don't know. Leave a comment in the description. Tell me what you think we should label and name the X-Tool D1 laser engraver. Think of something original, but this tool needs a name. Anyway, as you can see, I engraved it one direction, then went back and cross-hatched it in Lightburn. This adds a depth to the cut, and it also adds more of a sandblasted look to the burn. If you go one direction with the grain, you end up with lines. And then if you come back and go across the grain, the laser will get rid of those lines and make it a lot more of a smoother engrave. Although it does take twice as long to do. But I think the results are worth it. Using that photo in the design process, I was able to line up and engrave on the handle. This is why we sanded it down. And once again, using the cross hatching. I ran this at 100% at 5,000 millimeters per minute, and then cross hatched it, and it worked good on both the oak and the hickory handle. Looks great. After pulling it off Bob, now that name won't work. Yeah, send me a better name than Bob. After pulling it off Bob, we blow it down to get the soot out. It does a really good job of not darkening the wood anyway, but there's still a little bit left. And then I run a 400 grit sandpaper over it to just shave off just a little bit and clean up that edge. Doing this sharpens the edge of the engrave just a little bit and gives it that nice crispy laser engraving look that you want. So once that's done, we blow out the letters, and you can see that it is nice and crisp. Of course, we do the same thing with the hammer. Give it a nice blow off with the air compressor and a quick sand with the 400 grit. You can see in the beginning of this that there is some soot above the letters. The air will take a lot of that off, and then the sanding will take the rest of it off. And it will look fantastic. Next, we need to mount the hammer. I'm going to use 1/4 inch dowels for this. While I designed the lettering, I also made 2 little circles using the photo as a template to where I wanted to put these. So while laser engraving the letters, I also laser engraved my markings to put the dowels, so I knew they would be right where I wanted them. Since they're going to be drilled out and hidden by the hammer, they weren't something anyone would see, but it sure made lining up and doing this part a lot easier because I knew from the photo exactly where I wanted those dowels to go. To transfer these holes to the hammer, I'm going to use some dowel joinery registration pins. These fit in the holes of the backing. They have little points on them. So you stick them in the holes, and then you line up what you want to register those holes to, and you press down or tap it with a hammer, and those little points will then dimple the wood. So I put the hammer on, and with a quick press, I now have little marks on the back of the hammer where I need to drill my holes. And we will do that next. So you've already seen me drill a couple holes, but using the same brad point drill bit I drilled the holes in the plaque, I will drill into those registration holes in the hammer. And now we know we have holes that are perfectly spaced for the hammer to be set into the backing with some 1/4 inch dowel pins. Sometimes these little markers can be hard to get out. In this case, I just push a dowel pin from the back and pop out the marker. And as you can see here, it is a perfect fit. The hammer slides right on those pins, and now with a little bit of glue, it will live there forever, and we can move on to finishing and make this thing look pretty. I rarely use a glossy finish. I prefer to use a satin and occasionally a matte, but this is a plaque. It's meant to be shiny and glossy and get your attention. So in this case, I used a high gloss Minwax polyurethane spray in a can. It did a great job. I sanded all that to 400 so that it was very, very smooth. This had almost a piano finish except for where the oak grain was, so you could still see the wood grain, but the smooth parts were just great. We will get to beauty shots in just a second. Happy Father's Day. Don't forget to do something nice for your dad this year. He's probably earned it.